What is the worst punishment that you can think of? Because you may have heard of being burnt at the stake, you may have heard of beheadings, but how about the brazen bull of Scaphism, or the blood eagle? I will say this, the twisted creativity of the human mind has certainly shown throughout history when it comes to punishing those who may or may not have even deserved it, by the way. So if you're not going to at least wince at some of the following stories, you might want to do some soul searching. Frankly, I wasn't even aware of some of these until Wilfer brought them up to me, and now I'm too scared to ask how he knew any of this. Pendle was a talented Greek sculptor who lived about 2,500 years ago. Back then, the ruler of the land was the tyrant Phalaris of Akragas. This guy was said to be so vicious and cruel that he even practiced cannibalism for his own entertainment. Phalaris was itching to find a novel way of punishing those who opposed him, and so he called upon the sculptor Pendle to come up with such a device. A large bronze bowl was constructed, which could narrowly fit a person inside its metal belly. Beneath it, a fire would be lit, heating up the inside of the bull, essentially roasting the victim alive. But here's where the ingenuity of its creator stood out. The structure had an opening at the mouth and used a sort of rudimentary voice modulator that would turn the screams coming from inside into horrific sounds that eerily resembled the roar of an actual raging bull. In an ironic turn of events, however, when the sculptor proudly presented his creation to Phalaris, the tyrant was equally appalled and excited by the monstrosity of the device, so he decided to test it on Pendle himself. The sculptor was forced inside the bull, thus becoming its first victim. Karma wasn't sleeping though, because it is also said that many years later, when Phalaris was overthrown, he also met his end, ironically in the very same brazen bull. You probably know what bamboo is, but I bet you didn't know just how many things it can actually do. It's very lightweight, it's incredibly strong, it can be used for anything ranging from building materials and furniture to clothing, paper, and even as a food source. Bamboo delicacies being known all across Asia for their high nutritional value. But one of the most fascinating aspects of bamboo is that it grows exceptionally fast, up to over 3 centimeters or a little over 1 inch per hour. Now, me being the simple-minded fellow that I am, that would just make me think, we can watch it grow in real time. Isn't that cool, Wilfer? All the while, others have come up with a much more sinister use case for it. In the 1800s, British Royal Navy Admiral Sherard Osborne published his memoirs documenting a common punishment method he encountered in India, whereby prisoners would be tied in a sitting position above a bamboo sprout, and they would be left there for a few hours as the bamboo shoot would quickly rise in length to the point where it pierced the flesh of the unfortunate hostage, causing excruciating pain, and unless they confessed to something they probably hadn't even done, it would even lead to their death. It's not uncommon throughout history, however, to see people get punished for something they didn't do, or for saying things that went against the status quo. It is well known, for example, that Giordano Bruno was burnt at the stake for speaking against the Catholic-approved geocentric model. Thankfully, that's no longer the case, since information has never been more available than it is today. And with Brilliant.org, who is kindly sponsoring this channel, you can explore a wide variety of lessons, making topics like math or computer science easy to understand. What's really great about their platform is that it has a gamified feeling to it, making for an engaging and interactive experience. Upon signing up, Brilliant personalizes the lessons based on your proficiency level through a few tailored questions. As you delve into the interactive challenges and puzzles, you'll find yourself learning effortlessly. It's an enjoyable and stimulating platform, particularly beneficial for visual learners like myself. And you can try Brilliant completely free for a full 30 days by visiting brilliant.org/AndreiTserba. That's AndreiTerbea. The first 200 of you will also get an additional 20% off of your annual premium membership. The moment you try it, it will probably become your new favorite activity on your journey as a lifelong learner. Thanks to Brilliant for sponsoring us. Now let's get back into our video. Now, while on the topic of punishments, one story that will send a chill through your spine is that of the Devis family and the Pendle witch trials. In 1612, in Lancashire, fear roamed all over the little English borough of Pendle. Accusations of witchcraft were recklessly thrown about, based on hearsay, grudges, and misunderstandings. And perhaps no other story is more chilling than that of the Devis family. 9-year-old Janet Devis, for reasons nobody fully understands to this day, accused her entire family of witchcraft, sentencing her own mother, mother, her 2 siblings, and her grandmother to death by hanging. As they awaited their trial, the Devis family was thrown into a small, dark, moist, and filthy cell with 20 other people. The conditions were so unbearable that in the 4 months of their custody, the grandmother passed away right there in the cell. When it finally came time to testify, the little girl climbed up on a table and spouted a series of lies about her mother so convincingly that she practically sealed the fate of her entire family. Shortly thereafter, her mother and her siblings were taken to a nearby hill to be hanged in a public spectacle. But in a twisted turn of fate, documents from a few decades later show that Janet Devis herself, now aged 30, was brought to trial for witchcraft, facing the very same accusations she had made against her own kin. Even if you've never heard of the Blood Eagle, you can intuitively tell that it is not something for the faint of heart to witness. Legend has it that it was an important part of Viking culture over 1,000 years ago. But unlike other punishment methods, this was never done on individuals of lesser standing. In fact, it was reserved for kings and other high-status prisoners of war. The Blood Eagle ritual was conducted in front of a crowd of Vikings, eagerly watching as the victim was pinned down with their back facing up. A sharp knife or axe would have made a surgical slice across their spine. The ribs would be carefully unzipped from the spine so as to not damage the lungs, and then the ribs would be pulled outwards. Finally, while the victim was still alive, the lungs would be taken out through the back and stretched upon the exposed ribs, creating the impression of a bird's wings. While the vivid portrayal of the Blood Eagle in modern media such as the TV show Vikings or the video game Assassin's Creed Valhalla has contributed to the ritual's mystique and fascination, its precise historical accuracy remains a topic of debate. The Blood Eagle, however, is a chilling reminder of what the human mind can come up with when it comes to punishing one's enemies. This ancient Chinese punishment method was said to be one of the most harrowing ways to make a prisoner crumble. But here's the catch: it did not leave any physical injury whatsoever. All it ever was is a drop of water hitting one's forehead, followed by another one and another one for hours on end. The prisoner's arms and legs would be tied down, and even their head would be held in place so that they wouldn't even be able to turn to the side. They would usually be held in a quiet room where the sound of the drop against their forehead was the only thing they'd hear during the harrowing procedure. The anticipation of each drop would quickly become tormenting, building a heightened sense of anxiety and discomfort. The colder the water, the more uncomfortable it would be, and before long, each drop of ice-cold water would feel like a heavy dagger stabbing the numbed skull over and over again. And despite water being at the center of this procedure, the prisoner would often suffer from dehydration, since they would be unable to reach the drops with their mouth. All of this escalated their frustration and made them spiral into insanity. In recent times, due to heightened interest in this method, a lot of people have taken it upon themselves to see how far they can make it. YouTube, for example, is filled with such videos, and although it might appear easy to withstand, none of them usually make it very far, unless of course they're faking their videos. Some of these content creators have also reported lasting psychological discomfort hours and even days after breaking free of the contraption, so it might be worth noting that you should definitely not try this or any of the methods discussed in this video at home. Honey and milk create one of the most harmonious flavor combinations ever known. But did you know that the 2 ingredients were once used for a brutal punishment method? In ancient Persia, one of the most horrific treatments of prisoners that has been documented was called Scaphism, whereby an unlucky individual would be tied to a boat. They would be fed large quantities of honey and milk, and their entire body would be smeared with the same mixture. Then they would be set adrift in the hot, scorching sun. Because of the laxative effects of the eaten ingredients, it wouldn't be long before the victim would get severe diarrhea, while the sweetness on their skin would attract a flurry of insects and create a breeding ground for infestation. This gruesome punishment was not only physically but also psychologically torturous. The helplessness of being bound to a drifting boat, the relentless assault of insects, and the unforgiving sun, all of these elements would have added layers upon layers of horror to the experience as their body gradually deteriorated until they would eventually pass away in a gut-churning pool of their own filth. Now, of course, many of these these punishment methods remain a topic of debate. It's difficult to say exactly which ones were actually used and how often, but one thing remains certain: the human mind has a freakishly creative skill of inventing new ways to make one's opponents suffer. As far as I'm concerned, I don't think I'm ever gonna look at honey the same way ever again. And if you're not gonna be able to fall asleep tonight, first of all, sorry. And second of all, if you've ever wondered why we can't stop our brains from overthinking late at night, click up here to watch my previous video on that exact topic. In the meantime, do let me know in the comments if you had to pick one way to go of the ones we've discussed here today, which one would it be? See you soon.